Picture this, because I can almost guarantee some version of this has happened to you recently. It's Friday evening, around 5:30 p.m., the official end of the work week. On paper, your obligations are over. In reality, your body is moving, but your mind is completely hollowed out. You're sitting in your car in traffic, or wedged between strangers on a train, or waiting for a ride share while staring at your phone without really seeing anything on the screen. Your thoughts feel slow, heavy, and fragmented. You are not relaxed. You are depleted. The idea of cooking dinner feels absurd, not difficult, absurd, like asking a marathon runner to do squats at the finish line. So you reach for the easiest anesthetic available. You open a delivery app. You scroll past food you don't really want but know will arrive quickly. Thai, pizza, burgers, something greasy, salty, and comforting. The total creeps up. $30, $38, then the fees, then the tip, $45. You hesitate for half a second, then tell yourself the sentence you've been trained to say, I earned this. You get home. You open a beer or pour a glass of wine that tastes fine, but mostly functions as a signal to your nervous system that it can finally stop bracing for impact. You sink into the couch. You turn on a show you don't even enjoy, but which is familiar enough to require no thought. This, you tell yourself, is rest. This is the reward for a hard week. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if you didn't just spend $45? What if that number is a lie? What if the pizza, the commute, the clothes you wore, the stress that drained you to the point of ordering food in the first place are all part of a much larger, invisible bill? What if, when you zoom out and do the math honestly, your job isn't paying you what you think it is? What if the number on your paycheck is just the revenue line, and you've never once looked at the expenses? My name is Gary, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about the invisible math that governs our lives, the equations we never write down but live inside every day, the ones that keep us running on treadmills that move just slightly faster than we can. If you've ever looked at your paycheck and wondered where it all went, if you feel like you're working harder now than you did years ago, but your savings account hasn't moved, this conversation is for you. Because this isn't about investing or side hustles or getting rich quick. This is about an accounting fraud, not one committed by a corporation, but one you unknowingly commit against yourself every time you accept a job based on the gross salary alone. We are going to calculate your real hourly wage, and once you see it, you will never look at money the same way again. From the moment we leave school, we are sold a very clean, very simple lie. We are told that our value is defined by our annual salary, $65,000 a year, $75, $100. These numbers become shorthand for success, competence, and adulthood. If you make $65,000 a year, that's about $31 an hour. That sounds respectable, comfortable, livable. But in the business world, anyone who evaluates revenue without expenses is running a scam or about to go bankrupt. If a bakery sells $1 million worth of bread, but spends $1 million on rent, flour, and labor, that bakery is worth nothing. Yet when it comes to our own labor, we only look at revenue. We never subtract the cost of selling ourselves. And the product being sold is not just your time, it's your energy, your attention, your health, your flexibility, your emotional regulation, and your future options. The cost of goods sold is enormous. Let's run a brutal audit, not an idealized one, a realistic one. Imagine an average worker. We'll call him James. James earns that respectable $31 an hour. But before the money ever reaches his account, the government takes its share. Federal tax, state tax, payroll taxes, FICA. That 31 drops to around 24. This part is obvious. Everyone knows this. It's the math after this point that destroys the illusion. Now we subtract the costs James pays purely for the privilege of having his job. First, the commute, gas, insurance, maintenance, depreciation, or monthly train pass or rideshare fees. The average worker spends thousands a year just moving their body to the location where the labor occurs. If James drives 30 minutes each way, that's an hour a day of unpaid labor, plus a vehicle he largely owns to remain employable. Conservatively, this costs him $4,000 a year. Then there's appearance. James cannot show up in sweatpants. He needs work-appropriate clothes, shoes, grooming, haircuts, dry cleaning. This is not optional spending. This is a uniform with better marketing, another quiet expense. Then comes the convenience tax. Because James is gone all day, his life has to bend around the job. He buys lunch because he didn't have the energy to prep. He buys coffee because he's tired. He pays a dog walker. He pays for delivery. These are not lifestyle luxuries. They are operational expenses, money spent to maintain employability. And then there is the darkest category of all, decompression spending. This is the money spent not because you want something, but because you need relief. The bar tab on Friday, the impulsive weekend trip, the shopping spree that temporarily restores a sense of control, the therapy bills, the subscriptions, the little treats that keep you from snapping. This is not indulgence, it is damage control. Add it all up: taxes, commute, clothes, convenience, numbing. Suddenly, James isn't taking home $65,000. His real, usable income might be closer to $35,000. But we're still lying to ourselves, because wage is not just money, it is money divided by time. And this is where the illusion fully collapses. HR says James works 40 hours a week. This is a lie that everyone agrees to repeat. James wakes up early to shower, dress, and prepare his body for work. That is labor. He commutes. That is labor. He takes a lunch break he cannot use freely. He stays mentally tethered to the office even when the clock says he's off. He checks emails at night. He vents. He worries. He decompresses in ways that belong to the job, not his life. When you count the grooming, the commuting, the mental load, the recovery time, James is not giving 40 hours a week to his job. He's giving 55, 60, sometimes more. Over a year, that's close to 3,000 hours of life dedicated to employment. Now we do the real math. $35,000 divided by 3,000 hours. Suddenly, that respectable $31 an hour collapses into something uncomfortable. $10, $8. In some high-cost, high-stress environments, less. Less than a teenager working a summer job who walks to work, wears a uniform, and leaves the stress behind when the shift ends. This is the scam. You are running a high-revenue, low-margin business where you are the product and you are selling yourself at a loss. At this point, some people get defensive. They say this is pessimistic, that this thinking is toxic, that work is just part of life. And that's true, but ignorance doesn't make math disappear. The purpose of this calculation is not despair, it's clarity, because once you see your real hourly wage, everything changes. This idea comes from a book called Your Money or Your Life, and it is one of the most dangerous ideas you can introduce into a consumer economy, because it reframes prices in terms the system does not want you to use: time, life, energy. If your real hourly wage is $10, a $100 pair of shoes is not $100. It is 10 hours of your life, 10 hours of commuting, stress, emails, meetings, and fatigue. Is that object worth 10 hours of existence? Most of the time, the answer is no. This single reframing kills impulse spending more effectively than any budget spreadsheet ever could. It also exposes the trap of promotions. You get offered a raise, $10,000. Sounds great. But now you work later. You order takeout more often. You buy nicer clothes. You're more stressed, so your decompression spending increases. You might process more money through your account while keeping less of it and giving up more of your life. Your real hourly wage goes down, and you call it success. The most terrifying cost, though, is opportunity cost. Every dollar spent tolerating work is a dollar not invested. That $5 daily coffee because you're too exhausted to brew at home doesn't just cost $5. Over 30 years at 7%, it costs hundreds of thousands. You are not drinking coffee. You are drinking your future freedom. The system depends on you being too tired to run this math, too busy to question it, too numb to optimize it.
It wants you focused on income, not margin, because margin is where freedom lives. The solution is not quitting your job and moving into the woods. The solution is ruthless optimization, negotiating remote work, cutting commute, reducing work-induced spending, treating your labor like a business, because a smart business does not chase revenue, it protects margin. If you make $100,000 a year but spend $95,000 and work 80 hours, you are a failing enterprise. If you make $50,000, spend 20, and work 30 hours, you are winning, quietly, powerfully. Your life is a business, your margin is your humanity, and every expense tied to work is a vampire feeding on it. Audit your life, calculate the real number, write it down, put it somewhere visible, and the next time you're about to buy something you don't need, ask the only question that matters: how many hours of my life